Hey guys, John L here. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to be playing some Tetris. So I didn't really have any idea of what I was going to do for this video because I can't beat Tetris. I'm not even quite sure like Tetris can be beaten. I was taking a look at the old Nintendo issue that it was featured in, and it says it goes up to level 19. I've never even gotten anywhere close to that. So I actually didn't even own this version of Tetris. When I was a kid, I had it on PC and I had it on Game Boy. But, they featured this on Nintendo Power, so here we are. So what I thought I would do is kind of make a video. I'll play some Tetris and talk about Tetris and kind of the phenomenon that it was, and kind of what it was like, what it kind of meant to me. Let's pick some music. So first off, this is the Nintendo version of Tetris, and there were a couple that were made for the Nintendo. I guess we'll go with this. I think this is the Nutcracker or something. We'll start at 0 and just kind of keep going. Hopefully I last a long time, or this might be a short video. But there was a couple releases of Tetris for the Nintendo. This one is the one that I think is actually officially made by Nintendo. Although Tetris was actually created in, I think like 1984 was what I was reading, by Alexei, I think Payitnov, something like that. I don't know how to say Russian names. But anyways, it was created in 1984, and I guess he was doing some machine learning stuff, and he wanted to create a game that computers could kind of learn from, and he came up with Tetris, which actually is not like a new game. So I think, what do they call this, Tetradon or something like that? But basically games where you pick a certain number of like blocks and just make every conceivable shape out of it, and then try to, I guess, match them up, have been around for a while. So one, Tetris isn't new, but Pajitnov created a version that I guess everybody just kind of enjoyed or had fun with. And so that was 1984. And bear in mind, in 1984, Russia was part of the USSR. And I could be incorrect, I'm not even quite sure he's from Russia, but I know it involved, the USSR. So basically, it's communist, so he couldn't do anything. He couldn't profit off of it. But if you're a fan of 80s movies and world events, which you should be, Gorbachev was president, and there was, perestroika, and, taking down the wall, and, well, basically communism kind of fell apart in Russia. So I think Pajitnov gave the rights to Elorg, which I believe is a Russian company, or like Russia's software company. I'm not 100% sure of that, but you saw that in the kind of boot up screen. So he gave it to them for like 5 years, so for another 5 years he didn't make any profit off of it. And all the while, Tetris was catching on around the world like wildfire. So some other companies had kind of made some bootlegs and copies, and video game companies were trying to get their hands on it because it was already kind of circulating through PC, and just attracting like a huge audience. So, and most of this is coming from Wikipedia. So, and then I'll let you know what part of this is personal experience. So anyways, kind of around like the late 80s, Nice, we are level 2. Okay, this is going pretty well. You know, he was able to create his own company, which was the Tetris company, and start actually making money off of this creation. So, Tetris was huge. It was a game that everybody was playing just because of its simplicity, its like intuitiveness, and the fact that it was a game that kind of wasn't like geared for kids. I mean, you know, as a kid you could obviously play it and have fun with it, but as an adult you could also play it and have fun with it too. So, you know, you weren't gonna kind of have the stigma at the time of like, you know, oh, you're an adult playing a kid's game, which was what a lot of video games were perceived as at the time. So I wish I had taken a look at it, but you know, somehow, like, you know, I guess the Tetris company and Pajitnov consolidated their hold on Tetris, and they were able to, you know, license to certain companies. So, getting back to what I said before, there are a couple versions of this game on the Nintendo. One of them was made by Tengen, and it was multiplayer, which is actually kind of better than the Nintendo version that we're playing right now. So this is only a single-player game. But the Tengen version wasn't like official, so they had to cease and desist. And if you're, you know, an owner of that Tengen cartridge, I don't know how much it's worth. I should have taken a look on eBay, but supposedly it's a collector's item. Now, what's ironic is when I was a kid, I remember seeing, you know, like, just Tetris sitting in the glass case at, you know, like the local Long's drugstore. So, you know, if I knew what I knew now, I obviously would have bought that game, even though I had really, like, no interest in, you know, owning it or playing it. So, again, there have been, like, a billion, you know, versions of Tetris out there. My first experience of it was on the PC, and I liked it because of the music, which the Nintendo has done a pretty good job of bringing over. I recognize this. I think it's Nutcracker. I'm not quite sure. Not really a classical music person. But that kind of seemed like a consistent song that you'd find across a lot of platforms. I know, like, on the PC version that I was playing, or Apple version, I actually believe, it was on there. And this one has a nice background, which is cool. And it has the gameplay that is, you know, most familiar. There's an A-type and a B-type. We'll play the B-type once I die in the A-type. But A-type, you know, you make lines until you can't make any lines anymore, and every 10 lines you make, it increases the speed of the game. So, again, like, real simple game, like, really intuitive to play, and it's challenging, and it's always different, so it's a really cool game. The PC version that I played had, you know, pictures of, you know, like, Russian scenes. I remember there's, like, Sputnik, and I think there's, like, St. Peter's Square, and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool, and, you know, during, like, the 80s, it was, you know, kind of a window into, you know, Russia, and that was kind of a interesting thing because, again, you know, Cold War and all that kind of stuff like that. If you watch, like, any 80s movies, you know, they're the bad guys, and that was kind of how it was. So Tetris was kind of a, you know, part of the whole, you know, fall of communism and, you know, beginning of, you know, Western and Eastern relations, I guess, getting a little bit better. So, as I mentioned, once Tetris hit, it blew up just because I think it was an easy title that, you know, adults and kids could get behind. So, you know, I mean, while you were playing it, like, you know, your mom or your dad or grandpa or grandma or uncle or whatever might also be buying it too. It also came out in concert with, or around the same time as, that was an awesome move, the Game Boy, or the Game Boy, the first version. So they were trying to figure out what game to package along with it, and they decided to put Tetris in there, which made a heck of a lot of sense because, you know, besides being like a portable game system which you could gear to kids, you could also, you know, it was also finding a demographic with, you know, travelers and, you know, adults and people who had to spend time, you know, on the road and all that kind of stuff. And it was, you know, kind of like the perfect game to package in, you know, a system like that. So the Game Boy obviously was wildly successful, and so was Tetris, and they both kind of, you know, fed off each other. So, you know, Tetris got a lot of popularity just because, you know, if you owned a Game Boy, you had Tetris, and, you know, if you had Tetris, you probably were playing it on the Game Boy. So Tetris was kind of everywhere, and it's interesting because I started playing games more or less along the Nintendo era. So Atari was during my time, but it was still kind of before my time. Like, I never really got into Atari. I had friends who had it, and they played it, and, you know, I goofed around with it, but it didn't appeal to me because... Because, like, just graphically, it required more imagination, and, I don't know, I mean, I guess I just wasn't that imaginative as a kid. So, I'm like kind of losing my train of thought because I'm about to die here. Yeah, so anyways, we're getting there, up in the speed. Oh man, okay. We're at level 10, so we're doing pretty okay here. I'm actually trying to remember what I was saying before I blanked. So this is the fun of Tetris, and I don't know, it's really a good game, because, yeah, it's so simple, everybody gets it. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I'm gonna die. Ah! Oh, I messed up. Ah! Oh. That's Tetris. So yeah, I wasn't around when, the Atari was around, and I think the Atari was where a lot of these games that were just huge cultural impact things happened, like Pong. Well, Pong was before that. It was kind of more of a PC thing, but you know, Galaga and a lot of those spaceship shooter games were you know, Atari type things. I know Mario was definitely a cultural impact type thing, but when Tetris hit, Tetris was the same thing, which was really weird because it's a puzzle game, you know, but it was interesting because I don't want to play A-Type anymore. It was definitely like a cultural impact kind of thing. Again, with Game Boys. If you saw anybody... Oh, this is going to be... Let's do something kind of mellow. We'll do... let's do level 7 and 30. Start off kind of warm. But it was like a cultural impact thing. You know, everybody knew about Tetris. It was something that you could talk about, and, you know, everybody would know what you're talking about. It's something that everybody played. And it kind of lasted for like a long time. I mean, it still lasts to this day. I mean, I feel kind of confident that, you know, if you mention Tetris to even casual, you know, gamers and even people who don't really play video games, people would know what Tetris is. So, it was definitely a phenomenon, and I think by the mid-90s, it was kind of either everywhere or else, you know, starting to get a little bit stale. So I remember when Tetris, I don't know, like a couple of years after, my mom picked me up a couple other games, and it was Weltris and Hatris. So it was like they were just making like Tetris sequels and Tetris type games out of everything. They weren't really Tetris because, again, you know, the whole Tet means four and is. Well, in the article, it mentioned that he was just combining his, you know, the Tet for four, and then is was from tennis, which was supposedly his favorite sport. So, but, you know, it didn't really have anything to do with the actual gameplay, except for the fact that I think, you know, they're made by the same company, or, you know, the idea was just that they were trying to capitalize off the population of Tetris. But I think it was a big boom in puzzle games because, you know, people saw the success of Tetris, and, you know, they just thought of like kind of any kind of concept of a puzzle game that you could come up with and make money. And they weren't totally wrong because, again, you know, with the Game Boy reaching more than just kids, and even kids being happy playing Game Boy, there was, like, you know, a big puzzle market. So, there's like a dragon, but I think this is a good version. It's got the A and B, which you definitely should have in like every Tetris version that you play. It doesn't have the multiplayer, which kind of sucks. I don't know why Nintendo didn't get that built in. That was one of the great things about the Tetris for the Game Boy, was the fact that it actually was a two-player game, and you could connect with the Game Link and actually play Tetris against a friend. So it was I'm gonna misspell my name. It was a real good idea too, because, again, you know, it was packaged in with every Game Boy and everybody had it, so, you know, all you needed was the link, and the link came with everybody, or, you know, every Game Boy. So yeah, Tetris was really big. I don't know if it really lasts today. I think it's gotten so far away from, you know, what it was originally, that there's just so many copies and versions and whatever right now that, I mean, it's not really much of a challenge to get your... Oh boy. Oh, look at that. Challenge to get your hands on one. On some version. I mean, there's like Flash versions, you can play Tetris online. There's not really like a need to go out and buy it. You know, it's on the phone. Swimmingly. So let's see if we can make a dent. I'm gonna give this another shot or two. Gotta really be on it if you're to level 9. This is probably not the best thing to do while trying to do some kind of commentary. But, yeah, so that's kind of Tetris in a nutshell. I still think this version's better than the Tengen version for the Nintendo. I thought that one kind of lacked in graphics. I like the Mac version that I was playing when I was a kid. That was cool. I like the Game Boy version. I think that's still a really good version, even considering that it's, you know, in the weird monochromatic colors of the Game Boy. But I think Tetris was like a huge cultural impact. It was, you know, kind of like on par with Mario. I don't think it has the legs that Mario did, just because, you know, how long are you going to stretch out a puzzle game for? But it was definitely, you know, it's definitely still a fun game. I mean, it never gets old. So, anyways, yeah, so that's Tetris. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And oh, I got a cool Tetris shirt. Like, this is super awesome. I actually got this in JCPenney, which is weird because I don't shop at JCPenney, but I was just cruising around for like video game shirts. I saw a Tetris shirt and it was on sale, so it's freaking awesome. So, anyways, I just wanted to show that off. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.